Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. We're going to talk more about other BSSM facts and important information to have as you're coming into first year. My name is RachelReich and I've just graduated from first year myself, so I am now beginning the journey to prepare for second year and going down that amazing road. So welcome. If you have not already watched my very first video on BSSM, it is part 1 of the first year's practical guide. Go back and watch that when you've got an hour to spare, because that's where the core info is as far as how the schedule works, what AMTs are, what RGP is, what all those kind of different things related to just like the layout and the system of BSSM. So I would highly recommend you go watch that before you take this video much further. But I am going to build on that and give a little bit more detail around just the first year lifestyle, specifically talking about housing and just food and just things like that, like things to keep in mind just for the practical doing life well kind of stuff. So the first thing I wanted to mention was when you're in school every day, you are in the Civic Center. So it's the Reading Civic Auditorium, and the Civic Auditorium is right outside of downtown Reading, and it's right across from the Sundial Bridge, Turtle Bay Exploration Park, which is right on the Sacramento River. So it's very centrally located. It's a huge venue. It holds a ton of people. I don't exactly know the amount, maybe 2,000, maybe 1,500, something like that. Probably somewhere in between that amount. And it's a huge room, and that big room is where you are all day, every day in school, Monday through Wednesday and part of Thursday. So just be aware of that. There's floor level seating, then there's a second level that's kind of arched, and then there's a third level that's really arched, and so we call that the first heaven, and the second heaven, and the third heaven. And people pretty quickly figure out where they're comfortable in that room, and they tend to sit in the same places throughout the year, but you are in the mix with a ton of people, so just be aware of that. If you, aren't really good with large crowds, BSSM is going to change that. I'm just like kind of reliving some of my things because I'm really an introverted person. I'm actually an extroverted introvert. If you told me to speak in front of 1,000 people, I'd have no problem. But when you throw me into 1,000 people and I'm just amongst them, having to talk and come up with simple chit-chatty things to say or whatever, I am not that person. So it was a very interesting experience for me throughout the year, finding what worked for me and what didn't work, and then also stretching myself. And so one thing I will say is I wouldn't say it's a mistake, but for a good portion of the year, I sat in the same part of the Civic with the same people consistently. And while those people are amazing, if given the opportunity, I wouldn't do that again. I would move around and I would sit with different people all throughout the year, because there are absolute giants in and amongst you at first year. And I wish I had gotten to know more of them, honestly. But I don't know if it was fear of man or if it was just a real aversion to discomfort and getting out of routine that kept me from sitting in different places. And a lot of times I didn't really like the second heaven and the third heaven because the seats are a little bit squished, so there's less leg room. So the first heaven floor seats were the best seats because they were more comfortable, there was more space. So if you're a taller person or just a bigger person, the floor was where I would have wanted to be. I think everybody wanted to be there, and so there was always this hassle of people saving seats for their friends, and then half their friends didn't show up, so there were all these saved seats that weren't being used by people who were sitting up in the second and third heaven that really wished that they could have those seats. And that was always, I think every single year they run into that problem of people saving too many seats. So anyway, if comfort is important to you, floor level seats are always where it's at, but you've got to get there kind of early to get them because they go quickly. But yeah, the second and the third heaven are all great. They all have their different strengths, honestly, their different values. But where you sit really matters for some reason. I think whether it's your view of the speaker or the people you're around, the atmosphere of the room, where you're sitting matters. So people took that kind of stuff seriously, but I really do wish I'd moved around more. So just piece of advice, there's so many people to meet. I can't tell you how many times I would go through the year being like, oh, I've never seen those people in my life. I've never seen those people in my life, like all the time, because, you know, how do you meet 1,400 people over the course of a year unless you actively try to meet more than the same group you always sit with? Yes, so, but because you're in that room, you will want to bring your lunch, because you are there. If you get there for pre-service prayer that starts at 12, then you are technically in that area from 12 until almost 4 o'clock. So that's like 4 hours. There's no real breaks. They schedule like there's breaks, but there's really no significant breaks in between Bible and worship and the speaker, or whatever sort of the schedule is for the day. They don't really have any set aside time, maybe 5 minutes if you're lucky, in between things to get up and go do anything. So if you're thinking, oh, I'll have a 15-20 minute lunch break, I can run out and go grab something, nope. I mean, you can do that, but you're going to miss something when you do it. So the best thing to do is to bring your lunch, plenty of water. They have water fountains all throughout there, but you can bring your own. There is the River Rock Cafe, and so that is in the Civic Center. So it is a business that sells like local food vendors in the community make sandwiches and soups and salads and things like that, and the River Rock Cafe sells it for them. And then the River Rock Cafe sells coffee as well, so they have lattes and all of that good stuff. So that is there. I will say it's pricey, so that might get you by every now and then when you forget or you're just starving, but it will bust your budget quick if you rely on that or just eating out in general regularly. So, but there is food in the Civic Center available for purchase. I want to say the sandwiches all ranged between like $6 and $7-ish. Coffees were usually between 3 and 5. Yeah, and then there was like other drinks available and snack foods, brownies, things like that. So there is something there for you. Then when it comes to that particular area, so the Civic Center is really nice because from it you can walk to downtown after school if you wanted. You can also walk through this sort of parking lot that separates it from the river. And once you walk over to the river, you're going to come in contact with the Turtle Bay Exploration Park, which is just a great place. A lot of kids like to go, and they've got all sorts of like science exhibits and experiments and stuff related to animals for children. And they also have a Reading, like a gift shop, so they've got a lot of cool Reading gifts, and they have a small restaurant that makes like paninis and sandwiches and brownies and stuff, kind of similar actually to the River Rock Cafe, but that's another source of food. And then right near there is the Sheridan Hotel, and within the Sheridan Hotel is a restaurant that's newly opened called Mosaic, and it's a really nice restaurant. So if you're looking for like, hey, I want to go grab a nice meal after school or something, you are within walking distance to a super nice restaurant right there, like 4-minute walk from walking out the front doors of the Civic. And so right in that area, though, is also the Sundial Bridge. There's a ton of walking trails. There are just great places to go pray, to go read your Bible, to go be alone, to go walk with friends. You'll see people jogging, walking their dogs all day, every single day. It's a hot point for the community. Tons of locals. Everybody hangs out there. Yeah, so it's really beautiful as well. Like the Turtle Bay Bridge, or the Sundial Bridge is its technical name, at sunset over the river. Ooh, it's really nice. Highly recommend. So that's just a great place to go. A lot of people would come before school and just hang out there, or after school and hang out there, just because it's so nice and the weather in Reading is so amazing most of the year. So it's very inviting. So yeah, bring your lunch, bring water with you, bring snacks. 4 hours in school, it's not really that long of a period of time, but if you came there hungry, it feels like forever. And if you want to maintain your focus, having something to eat really helps. As far as living goes, I think this is going to especially be helpful to people who know they won't have a car. If you are foreign or you're just an American who's coming without a vehicle and you're wondering where to live, if you want to make your life easy, you will listen to this advice. You can live anywhere in Reading that you want, but if you choose a location that's not within walking distance to the Civic Center, you are going to be asking for rides all the time. And while that may not sound terrible, depending on the kind of person you are, for the people who are giving the rides, it can be frustrating. Okay, so the people who have cars, a lot of people would complain about how often they were asked for rides and how often they were not compensated for giving those rides. And so I just think, it's just a matter of honor to always make sure you're paying or doing something kind, I don't know, for people that are going out of their way for you. And I really feel like if you are consistently getting rides from someone, it's important to clearly communicate, hey, I intend to pay you for this, and don't make them guess or wonder whether or not they're going to be compensated for how often they're driving you to the grocery store, to the gym, to school, to church services, to city service. So if you're coming without a car, always come with a plan in mind to compensate the people that are going out of their way, spending their money on their gas to take you to A, B, and C. That being said, if you're someone who would prefer to not have to rely on rides as often, you can live in 2 locations that will be beneficial to you. You're always going to need rides on some level. Like if you come anywhere in the United States without a car, you are going to have to get rides from people because, especially in Reading, the public transportation system is not as efficient as it is in Europe. It's also not as comprehensive as it is in Europe or other parts of the United States. So there's not a ton of sidewalks. There's no railway, anything. Okay, there is a local bus. It's called the RABA, the Reading Area Bus Authority. And students ride that for free. As long as you have your student ID that you show them, you can ride the RABA for free anywhere that it goes on bus routes, which can be really helpful and can open up where in the community you live if you're close to a bus stop. But if you don't have a bus stop nearby or those kinds of things, you're going to be asking for rides often. So you just already need to anticipate that coming through and maybe even set aside a budget for blessing people who give you rides often. I'm not saying you have to pay somebody every single time, especially not if they live right down the street from you. But we're all adults. We know what should be done and what shouldn't be done, right? So living in these 2 places will be the most beneficial for someone who is coming here without a vehicle. Listen carefully. Hilltop Drive or downtown. Okay, so if you live downtown, you can walk to the Civic Center without any problem. You're going to be really close to bus stops, bus drops. So you'll have access to the bus routes that will just take you to Civic, or you can just walk to the Civic. Either one are going to be super helpful for you. Or you can live on Hilltop Drive. Now, Hilltop Drive is sort of across the river from the Civic Center, but it's literally on the top of a hill that connects sort of north and south Reading, I guess you could say. And on the top of that hill, it looks out over all of Reading, and there's this thing called this river trail. And the river trail is right up at the top of Hilltop. You can walk out of your apartment, walk down these sidewalks, and you will find the river trail, and the river trail will literally snake you all the way down to the Turtle Bay Bridge, which you would cross, or Sundial Bridge, I don't know why I always call it that, the Sundial Bridge, which you'll cross, and boom, you're at the Civic Center. So whether you walk from downtown or you walk from Hilltop, either one is as convenient as the other. The only thing about Hilltop is it's a little bit longer of a walk, but we're talking 25 minute walk, a 7-minute drive if you were in a car. So if you don't have a vehicle, that is where I highly recommend you would be seeking apartments or housing of some sort in downtown Reading or Hilltop. Now, if you don't find housing in either of those places, like I said again, you are allowed to ride the RABA, the bus, As long as you have your student ID, you can ride that for free anywhere it'll take you, which becomes super convenient when you need to get groceries and things like that. So you just would need to learn the bus routes and times. The buses don't run super late in Reading, and they don't run super early in the morning. So there's just, learning their routes and times and all of that would be super beneficial for you. Mapping your route, like living somewhere that you can really map out a clear route, like where's the closest grocery store, what am I going to need, how am I going to get there, what kind of a time frame do I need to, anticipate. Carpooling, if you will have a vehicle, but there's going to be people relying on you, like setting up a carpool system, all of that. Just clearly communicating all of those things early on saves people so much stress, because it can get, especially if you're the person with a car, like I said, it can get really annoying and stressful if you're not clearly communicating a system or what you need from people, so it goes both ways, not just from the people expecting or needing the rides, but it goes for the people giving them, to always clearly communicate what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do, where you're willing to go and where you're not willing to go, those sorts of things. And usually as people expand their friendships and get to know more people, they tend to find the people they're most familiar with, and they tend to ride with those people throughout the year. So sometimes you give a lot of rides right at the beginning of the year, and then it levels off because they find different groups of friends, and, so just remain flexible. Yeah, there's also Uber and Lyft in Reading. Uber is obviously larger than the Lyft, but I knew of a lot of people who I think just either weren't able to find people who could give them rides, or they just felt bad about asking for rides a lot, and so they would take Ubers often. And that makes me kind of sad, because Ubers are expensive, and you've got to wait on them, and there's just, things going on with Uber, but they are available. So if worst case scenario comes up, there is an Uber. So if you need to get to the airport, or you need to get somewhere in a flash, or you're late for school and you've just got to get there and you don't have anybody to help you, Uber is there. Let's see. And the nice thing is actually several BSSM students are Uber drivers, so you may actually be inadvertently really supporting another BSSMer by using Uber. So it's not all bad, but it's just kind of one of those things that I would say wouldn't be my first choice of transportation, but it is there, which is super nice and helpful, because previous BSSM years did not have Uber in Reading, and we do, so we're lucky. As far as transportation to Sacramento, there is Greyhound buses, and they are super cheap. You're like $15 one ways. But of course these are stop buses, so they're going to stop often. But there are Greyhounds to Sacramento, and there's Greyhounds to San Francisco, there's Greyhounds up to Oregon. So there's always buses that you can take if you aren't able to rely on people to help you get to and from airports or cities for any major reason. I'm going to talk more about just the general Reading community, but I will say this, for people who transport themselves primarily via bicycle, which you can totally do. You can ride your bikes on the river trail, which makes your commute from Hilltop, let's say, down to the Civic Center a much quicker commute if you're doing it by bike. But if you do have a bike, and this really goes for cars as well, Reading has a homelessness issue that we are currently working on. That means that things get stolen and broken into more often than other areas you may be used to living in. So be wise with your bicycle. Some people need to keep them inside their houses or in their garage. At the very least, you want to keep it locked up and out of sight. Bicycles are stolen frequently. Cars did get broken into. It seems like the break-ins are getting less and less. I think the police and things are really cracking down, and there's so many people praying against the homelessness and the vandalism and burglaries in the community. And so I really believe things are changing, but wisdom would still say, be aware, pray over your house, pray over your vehicles, and lock them up. Lock them up. Don't have your... Like me, I actually had my car broken into in front of my apartment one evening, and I religiously locked that car. And I think, honestly, it was one day I just forgot. Simple as that. And I had a digital camera in my center console that I totally forgot about, that I've had for years. And sure enough, someone I think they literally walk by and just pull door handles and just see whose car happens to be open, and then they rifle through your things looking for anything of value. Oftentimes these people are addicts, so they're looking for things they can pawn and sell or trade to get drugs. So they rifled through all my stuff, through everything everywhere, and the only thing of value I had in the car was my digital camera, which they stole. So I'm thankful because they could have done more damage than they did, but they just took that. So I am a living example of make sure you lock your vehicles. I don't live in any sort of fear. I'm not like devastated that my camera was taken, but wisdom would just say, be careful. And again, that always goes down to where you live in Reading as well. Like, I don't live in an unsafe part of Reading, but there are areas of Reading that are more unsafe than others. So places on Churn Creek, places on Hilltop, places in downtown, most of these areas are safe. May still have a chance for something, but they're not unsafe. So yeah, if you find houses in those general areas, you're doing good. Gym memberships. I know for some people going to the gym is really important and you want to maintain your fitness. I had a gym, or still have a gym membership to Planet Fitness. It's like $10 a month. You can't get cheaper than that, I'm sure of it. It doesn't have a pool, doesn't have everything you may want, but it's got the gist of what someone needs to go to the gym. So that's available. However, most gyms, not all, but most gyms do require you to have an American bank account that they can automatically draft the $10 a month out of, or whatever the gym membership fee is. So if you don't have an American bank account, that may limit what gym memberships you can actually get, because they want something they can automatically draft from, and they cannot draft from foreign bank accounts. So keep that in mind. If you are not American but you know working out's really important to you, you may need to piggyback on someone else who has a gym membership that you can go as their guest. You can help them, whatever. Like, there's systems, there's things that you can work through. And then I think there's still gyms in the community that will let you pay month-to-month cash and things like that. I don't know of them, but I'm assuming there's got to be one or two of them in the community. So just anticipate some hurdles when it comes to that kind of thing. Also, if you have a car and you're moving here from some part of the United States, you have to register your vehicle in California within 30 days of moving here. That is a strict and very enforced law and policy. And Bethel is really big on this, and there were still students at the end of the year who hadn't registered their vehicle, which is super unfortunate, because Bethel really wants to honor the community and wants to honor the laws of the land, and had repeatedly told students this. And you can get ticketed, you can get towed if they can see that you've lived in the community longer than 30 days and you've not registered your vehicle. Now, if you can't do it right away for financial reasons within 30 days, there's always grace, but we're trying to honor the policies of this land that we're in. So it's really important you do that. It's not that big of a hassle, and the longer you wait, the more they will fine you when you go and do it. Take it from me, I did not do mine right away for financial reasons when I first moved to Reading, and then when I finally went to do it and was honest with them about when I actually moved here, I didn't lie. And so I got like $200 added to my bill of what it would otherwise have costed me, which I think was like $40 or something to have registered it. So that means you get a new tag on the back of your car that says California instead of Florida or whatever state you're from. So make sure you register your vehicle. Just do it as soon as you can. Build that into your budget. Do it right away so it's something that's done and you are finished with it and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to get your driver's license changed over to California. You do not have to do that, so that's one less thing you have to worry about. But registering your vehicle is legit, and the earlier you arrive at the DMV, the quicker you're in and out of that laborious task. So just make sure you have all your documentation, your driver's license, your insurance, your previous registration, all of that kind of stuff. You just bring it down to the DMV and say, I gotta switch it on over to California, and they will be happy to do that for you. Again, the community's super used to all the Bethel students, so they know how it works, and they're very gracious with us if we're honest and diligent to do what they expect us to do. Don't be that student who's graduating BSSM and still has the tags on their car from their former state. You may be moving back there, but come on, guys, like, it's about honor. And lastly, the last thing that I really felt from the Lord to just mention on this video was that Bethel has really worked hard to love this community well. And when you move here, you will find that Bethel is perceived either really well by local people or really not well. So don't let that put you off. It's, prophet has no honor in their own hometown. That's what I tell myself. But, there's just some people that just, haven't seen God's love yet. And other people who have seen God's love manifested and demonstrated through Bethel. So we show a lot of love and grace to the community. But one way that Bethel students can display the heart of the Father to the community is by blessing businesses and actually tipping well when they get waited on, and treating businesses with honor and respect when they are patronizing them. And yeah, that's just a great way, instead of just I don't know what the alternative is, but there have always been some stories of just people dishonoring businesses, not tipping well, not tipping at all, or 9 or 10 people going into a restaurant and only one person ordering food and everyone else otherwise just taking up space in the restaurant. Things like that are just super dishonoring and unfair to businesses. So it's really important to Bethel that we are always perceiving what God is doing in an environment and blessing that and honoring that and going above and beyond to show his love. And so I think that, and that's something that we all should strive for. It's nothing unique to Bethel. It's the kingdom, but because we live in a region that can be sometimes hostile to Bethel, we should be doing our very utmost to change that perception by means of being kind and loving and just showing God's love to people wherever we can, and showing how noble and full of integrity God's people really are by blessing businesses and being kind and respectful and just loving people, man. It's really not like, but it's just something that they always try to say. You'll hear it a lot throughout the year, just looking for students to really work and love Reading as if it's their own town and treat it with the same respect that they would want their own town to be treated with. You're not just here for 9 months, never to come back again. So it's not this kind of place, because I think that's kind of the attitude of students who go away to college. It's like, this isn't my town. They don't buy in. They're not loyal. They're not invested, and they kind of treat it like, a dumping place. And I know that's not Bethel's heart and BSSM students' hearts at all, but it's important to value the city you're in as much as you can and show people who you really are when you're here, because maybe this isn't your home forever, but while it's here, it's your home. And that's just been something that the leadership has always tried to drive home, because for Bill Johnson and Chris Valadin and other people, this is their home, and they believe in this community, and they've bought in, they've given their lives to the work of God in this place as well as all throughout the earth. And so how we steward this community and how we love its people and honor its businesses is a huge show of honor to our own church and leadership, and as much as it is a huge show of honor to our Father who brought us to this place. And I've said enough, but it's just something that I also am really passionate about, because I moved here and I'm invested in this community, and I see a lot of students come and go that don't invest in Reading, and that's okay. Like, this isn't most people's forever home, but it kind of bums me out when I feel like they're treating it cheaply, and forgetting that the people who live here. This is their home, and we're leaving a big impression, good, bad, or otherwise, with how we act when we're in it. So do the miraculous, walk in the supernatural, pray for people, love on them, but also do the basic things like tipping your waitress and ordering something when you're patronizing a business, Otherwise, go to the parks, go where it's free. So yes, those are just a couple more practical things about first year. Oh, there's always so many things I could say, but I'm always trying to hear the Lord of what is he wanting me to say in these videos. And if you have other questions that I'm just not talking about, I need to know, because I can only think through my filter of experience. So please, if there's things you really would like me to answer for you, you can always leave comments down below. I'm reading them. I'm trying to comment to everybody. And if there's just other things you'd like me to talk about in greater measure, like my own story of BSSM, or if you'd like me to get other people's perspectives, I'm happy to do that. Like, this is a very fluid video series that I'm doing right now, just trying to tell people things that are good for them to know coming for this huge experience. And they're the things I wish I had known before I arrived here. But again, BSSM is it's amazing. It'll stretch you guys. It will challenge you. It will make you renewed. I don't know. It's just amazing. But there's so much. The more I try to talk about it, the less I feel like I can say that explains it, because it's so supernatural and it's so personal to you and it's so unseen. But there's just things we can do in our practical day-to-day life and ways that we can set up our transition here and live our day-to-day that makes what happens in school that much more potent and powerful, because we're living in a place of peace and we've created healthy routine and systems that make our life less chaotic. I really believe that where you live is your haven, and that you need to live in a place of peace that you can come back and process through. So if you live in a place of chaos, or if you live in a place that's just disjointed and uncomfortable or difficult for you to tap into peace internally, that is not the situation you want to be in. You want to go after whatever situation will straighten your paths, if that makes sense. So, kind of goes on the video that I said earlier, the housing video that I just released. Just really seeking out God. What are you saying in this season of my life? Because I want to come into full agreement with what you are doing. So lead my decision making. Do I bring my car? Don't I bring my car? Do I live in Hilltop? Do I live on Churn Creek? Do I, really inviting him into this whole process to do it with you. And then jumping. Yeah. And asking him to guide you, because when you come to this place, you're going to create a new normal for your life. The way you've lived before you moved here, whether it was amazingly on fire for God, or it's been brand new believer, or really struggling through, like this, if you are open to it, this experience will create a whole new normal for the way you live your life in every way. So, yeah, it's amazing. First year is rockin'. I bless you guys. Thanks for watching again to my super long videos, because I can't seem to make them shorter, but one day I will. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day.